The next thing we're going to talk about is logs. Many people have a very hard time with logs. I don't know why. It is not a hard thing to go over, but they just don't get it, or they don't want to. And I don't understand because there's two things I'm going to show you. First and foremost,
I lost the thread there.
ow, that hurt my ears. I'm sure that killed yours. So you go to Warcraft logs. As you guys can see, I go to it a lot. Eternal Palace, let's do one where we didn't suck as much. So, this is the website. Simple. Go there, look up your logs. Okay, what do I look for? Okay, so first and foremost, this is going to be your analyze screen. This is the screen that's going to show you damage done by source, healing done by source, damage taken by ability, it's not by source. They assume the sources are fairly easy to figure out, and deaths. Now, this website is gigantic. You're going to have to play with it some yourself. But for DPS, a lot of times what you're going to look at is, so for myself, where is my damage coming from? So, about, not sure if those are too different. Let me, it looks like that should be the same, but so it looks like about 17.76% of my damage comes from Fists of Fury. Okay, that's a known. If you're using Open Palm Strike, that's a well-known fact. Your Fist of Fury is strong. About 10% of my damage comes from Rising Sun Kick. Okay, that's a known also. Then we've got Earth Spirit, Fire Spirit, and where's my other spirit? Somewhere in here. Um, Good God, where is it? Whatever. Apparently, only two of my spirits are doing damage. That's not right. Something's not right there. So next is Blackout Kick. Okay, so all that makes sense. Now, what am I looking for though? Like, what do I need to look for? Okay, so there's a few things. First and foremost, you want to look for, um, if I click off myself, you want to look for this active time. So as you can see, 99.08% of the time, I was doing something. I wasn't sitting there. I was doing something. Seld was 99.52. That .52 was probably the beginning of the fight when he was able to hit the boss and I was not able to. And if your numbers are somewhere in this range, 88.5, your DPS is going to tank. It's just all there is to it. Healer and healer, so I'm not worried about that. All the other DPS have good uptimes. 99% is where you want to sit as a tank or DPS. All there is to it. The next thing you want to look for would be on something like Affliction Warlock. So here, and that is your uptime. So as you can see, his uptime for Corruption was 84.08%. That is atrocious. You know, not to poke fun at or at Roy, but that is an atrocious number. That number needs to be 98, 99%. He probably is running Unending Agony. Um, I can tell right now by doing this. Yep, Absolute Corruption. Excuse me, Absolute Corruption. So I don't know how his corruption is. He just didn't apply corruption at the beginning of the fight. I don't know how he managed that. His agony uptime's great, but so their opener is corruption into agony, I believe. Agony, no. There's one of their dots that they cast, and then they insta cast the next two. So so that's something you want to look at is your uptime. If you have a dot, that dot uptime needs to be if it is possible for it to be 100%, it needs to be 100%, or as close to it as possible. That is something that you can look at, especially like Resto Druids, Resto Shaman. You can look up at your uptime. So if I were to, look at healing, and then look at hold my totems, I can look at Riptide. Her Riptide uptime, well, that's overheal. Uptime is abysmal. Just to be very blunt about it. But that's something you can look at. And that's something a Mythic guild will look for. So if you're looking to app into a guild as a healer or as a dot spec, or even not a dot spec, a spec that just has a dot that you use, they will look at that. They will see, hey, look, your dots are falling off and you've only got an 86% uptime. You're losing, several thousand DPS because of that. No. Or you're losing several thousand HPS because of that. Sorry. And I know it seems, like I'm being mean about it, but that is actually how a lot of them do it. If you are apping into a Mythic guild that wants to see your logs, most likely they are going to look for stuff like that. So, back to damage done. So as a non-dot spec, what do you look for? So a lot of times what you want to look for is make sure that your damage output matches the profile of what it should. What? Huh? So, come up here to the three little marks, come down to rankings. This was a normal, so you could do normal. Abyssal Commander Savara. And then you want to do Bunk, Windwalker. So this is the best Windwalker in the world on that fight in normal. Okay. So if you were to look at this, this looks pretty similar to mine. Now I might have a little bit less damage in Touch of Death. That could be just I didn't do as much damage inside my Touch of Death window, or our fight was 3 times as long, so the extra 10% kind of starts shrinking down the longer the fight. My Blackout Kick is much higher, so maybe I'm casting more Blackout Kicks, and I can look that up by just going here, going back here. I can compare them side by side if I wanted to. And now what I want to do is, his fight is 2 minutes 9 seconds long. So 2 minutes 9 seconds to here. Now what you can see is my Touch of Death went up, and my Blackout Kicks, I had 24, he had 17. Was I Blackout Kicking too much? Probably. That's what that tells me, is I'm probably Blackout Kicking way too much. And if you look, 7, 15... Is this mine? Yeah. 7, 15. Honestly, I would say that's a fairly good parse. If you're able to look at your top 5 or 6 spells and say, hey, look, they look at their pretty good order, I wouldn't complain too much. So my summary for here, my damage would be 28,638, and his would be 40k. Something you also have to remember is if I were to go to his rankings, he's 420 eye level. When I did this, I was 414. He's got 6 eye level on me, and that's actually fairly huge in this game. Plus, he probably outplayed me. Just to be very blunt about it, he probably outplayed me. So, that being said, those are some things DPS can look at. If you're a tank, you can also look at these things to see, hey, am I doing the right thing? At the very end of this, I will talk about something else that you can use. But right now, we're going to talk about what I look at. The next thing I'm going to look at, so that you guys can see past my ugly mug, is the ranking. Now, a lot of people look, you're just an elitist if you're looking at the ranking. No, you're not. The ranking tells you where you stand among every single person that has parsed this fight. Now, in the first week or two, the ranking is going to be skewed. Now, in normal, you're going to see mythic guilds go through normal with much higher eye level. That guy was 420, which is I can guarantee if I were to look him up now, he is probably closer to 430, 440 now because of him going through heroic and getting a bunch of drops and probably walking into mythic and getting maybe a drop or two. Um, and mythic plus and all the other stuff that comes along with that. So his ranking, though that's a discrepancy. He's a mythic raider. He's got eye level on me. Yes, I was 414, which is fairly good, but he was 420 and heading on up. That being said, that skews it so that your ranking is going to look lower in the lower difficulties, heroic, normal, things like that. Mythic difficulty, you can almost always say that this is going to be non-skewed because you're playing with the top 10% or so of the player base. The next thing you want to look at is your eye level percentage. Now, you have to understand statistics a little bit to understand this. Hey, stop. So, understanding statistics a little bit will tell you something. I'm not giving Polly a damn cracker. Understanding statistics will show you that the more parses you have, the more accurate your parse will be. So, here's the problem with eye level parse. I've got 4,599 parses overall as Windwalker monks on this fight. That means that at 414 eye level, which probably is 413 to 415, there may be 200 parses. And if you hover over it, it normally tells you how many parses, but it's not doing that today. They may have gotten rid of that. So, it is a much harder thing to look at and go, oh, my eye level parse says I'm 96th percentile. There may be 3 people parsing and the other 2 are morons. We don't fucking know. So when it comes to this, what I typically look at, eye level parse, what I want to see is your rank percentage to be lower than your eye level parse in these first couple weeks. So what that tells me is you may be gimped in gear because your total parse is lower, but at your eye level you are parsing higher, so what it shows is you actually know the class fairly well. But if you see the opposite happen, so here with Rias, and not to call anybody out, but, or with Siana, what this is saying is their damage is much lower. So you see 25th percentile to 19th or 28th to 16th. What you're seeing is they may be getting carried by their eye level a little bit in their damage because it's going lower than what theirs is. And the way you figure that is your total parse is here. And I wouldn't say that with Rias because he's only 412, but there is a chance of that with Siana. So you're seeing their total parse being higher than their eye level parse. So what that typically says is my eye level is kind of pulling me up. Not always true, especially on the upper and lower, ends of the bell curve, where you may be only parsing against a couple people. It's really hard to tell where they actually stand in the first couple weeks specifically. And the other thing that if you see someone that is kind of even across the board, so Blood, you're a good example of this, even though it's a bad parse, 11 percentile at 9, that means that your percent ranking is probably pretty close to true. So that's a good way to figure that out. Okay. Now that is DPS. It's kind of how to look at it, kind of how to see things. I'm not going to show you to compare side by side with DPS, but I will with healers. Next thing I'm going to go to is tanks, because tanks are really easy to figure out. Tanks, once again, you can go to the damage done and look at their damage done, see Compare it against another tank that's your same class. Easy. The real place that you want to go is buffs. Okay. And I'm going to reset and zoom. And I'm going to pick one of our tanks. Blood's right on top. You get picked, Blood. So, buffs. Obviously, buffs on you. Simple. What you can look for right here is your uptime. This is your uptime. And this is huge for tanks because you have things like demon spikes. Honestly, your demon spikes uptime is very low. You have gaps here, 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 and here. Even if you're not tanking, having demon spikes up, it should just be a natural thing for you to hit your button for demon spikes. So, I understand maybe if you know your big hit's coming, you're pooling 2 of them or something like that for an extended bash, but honestly, that's something you want to work on. That's very simple to look at for a tank. A good tank's going to have good uptime on their defensives. They're going to have, a good uptime. Their damage is going to look good. And that's it. That's all you got to look for. Are they parsing blue, which is pretty standard for a Mythic Guild? Blue parses in heroic content. Are they parsing blue, and is their uptime good? Now, things like this. Soul Barrier. It has a 30-second cooldown. We're talking about a 5 minute 15-second fight. That means you could have gotten 10 off, guaranteed. Not 10. Let's go with 9, guaranteed. And you use 3. What are you doing with the rest of the souls laying on the ground? You can say you're healing yourself, but that's kind of a waste. So just saying, if you've got something, you got abilities, use them. If you're tanking, you've got a couple of things you've got to do. 1, position the boss so that DPS can do their job. Most important. 2, don't die. Second most important. Believe it or not, yeah, that is the second most important. Third most important, do as much damage as you fucking can. Okay. 4th, don't face the boss towards the party unless you have to. Simple. Being a tank is very easy. It really is. So, that being said, looking at tank looks is very simple. This is the first page I come to. Okay, so that's what that is. So if you took a talent like Soul Barrier, obviously before I didn't look at his talents beforehand, but I would have if I were to look at this as an actual look. I do not believe he's running Soul Barrier. I believe he's running what's it called? He is most likely running Last Resort. So he is not running Soul Barrier. But that is how you could look at that. Just an FYI. Things like that, that's what you got to look for. Yeah, that's how easy it is with tanks. Are their numbers looking good? Yeah. Are their uptimes looking good? Are they dying? No. Okay, good tank. Are they positioning the boss so everybody can hit them? Yep, good tank. Simple. Tanks are the easiest. They really are.
Battery low.
I went over weak auras, which I will talk about more in depth, or I will link the video for that. And I have gone over DPS, how to parse, or how to look at a parse for a DPS, how to look at a parse for a tank, and we are going to look at a parse for a healer now, and what we're going to look at. So with healers, the best thing to do is get a side-by-side. What do I mean by that? Okay, so first and foremost, Get out of here. What's up, buddy? That's a key. Go watch your show, buddy. So, what you're going to see is these numbers and letters up here before the pound fight. Copy those. You're going to want them. Copy. Easy. Okay. Started this off real easy. So next we're going to go to rankings. We're going to change this to healing. It has to be the same fight and on the same difficulty. So that on normal. And you got to pick your healer. So let's do... Yeah, let's... I'm going to pick on you a little bit. Oh my god. Not to be mean in any way, shape, or form. I'm going to pick on you a little bit, though. So, found your healer. This guy is best healer on this fight in the world. It's in Vodka's. Not surprising, because Vodka's a high-end guild. You're going to hit this compare, and then you're going to compare reports. Compare with URL. You're going to paste that stuff I showed you in here. So, we're going to pick the fight. Abyssal Commander. And then what we're going to do is we're going to pick the people. We're going to Iron Heals. And then hold my totems. What you're going to do is come to healing. And you want to make this even. So, since their fight was shorter than ours, cut it down. So, Iron Heals is over here. Hold my totem is over here. Okay? Simple. Now what you want to look at is what spells were cast. And I'm going to bring this up as much as I can. And I guess I could shrink my camera a little bit. Okay. I'll have to bring that back up when I go back in game because I don't need people seeing my chat in game. But, so, this is the best way to figure out what you're doing wrong as a healer, whether a healer's doing their job or something like that. Because healers depend so heavily on comps, damage intake, damage outgoing, things like that, to be able to figure out. These are the hardest parses to look at. Just an FYI, if you are a healer or looking at healer parses, they are some of the hardest parses to look at. Because it is so hard to tell, especially at a mythic level, where if I were to look at a method type guild versus, a guild like Limit, they're running two different healer schemes. And that matters a lot, believe it or not. If you're running Disc Priest, they prevent damage from coming in because the way they work is they shield people before that damage comes in, and then when that damage comes in, they burst heal very easily. Other healers aren't as good at that. Resto Druids? No, they don't do that. They just keep ticking damage. Holy Paladins? Believe it or not, they actually do that because Glimmer is still fucking good. If you go look at a lot of the if you watch the Race for World First right now, they're running Disc Priest, Holy Paladins. That's pretty much it. Resto Druids are still good for that type of stuff. But now the reason you want to look at that is you want to look at the comparison on casts. So you can see that this healer, who did fuckload of healing, cast Chain Heal 32 times versus 2. So at that point in time, what that's showing me is there's a difference in prioritization, and it's probably not for the better on my healer. Does that mean my healer sucks? No. It means that they need to, readjust how they're healing. My healer is using Healing Surge and Healing Wave way more than this person is. They cast 7 Healing Waves. My healer only casts 4, but there's really no reason to cast a Healing Wave. Healing Surge, that is comparable to a Flash of Light for Paladin. So that is, we don't want to use Healing Surge very often, especially as a non-tank healer. And the strength in a shaman is a clumped group. So we want Healing Rain. Okay, that's a good, if you look at the cast, 8 versus 9. Good. That's a good sign. They're keeping their Healing Rain down. Riptide, not so much. Riptide 16 verse 3. So that's something we can work on. We can talk to our healer and say, hey, look at your Riptides, and let's get that Riptide, uptime up. Let's get you up to that, 16 Riptides. How can we do that? Do you need a weak aura? Do you need me to shout at you throughout the fight? What do we need to do to make that happen? Okay? Simple. Now with Chain Heal, this is a reprioritization. What this is what this shows me is that with Healing Surge and Healing Wave being your priority as a shaman healer, you are trying to reactively heal. At a mythic level and high heroic level, you don't reactively heal, you proactively heal. And what that means is you heal before the damage hits. Now, as a shaman, this is really easy to do because Chain Heal and Healing Rain are both smart heals. What that means is they will not jump to something that... One second. Guys, please stop. Third time. So Chain Heal and Healing Rain, they will not heal somebody that is at full health. So that's great. So my suggestion, if I were to talk to this healer, would be to say, hey, look, Healing Rain, looking good. You're really good on that. You missed one cast. But that's perfectly fine. Missing one cast, not the end of the world. But we need to reprioritize your heals and how you're healing. You need to worry less about being reactive and seeing the damage done, and just know that the damage is coming and start using those heals. So the basic idea of this is you're going to stand there and you're going to heal, and you're going to throw a chain heal out. If you know damage is coming, great. You're going to heal a bunch of people with your chain heal. If you don't know the damage is coming and you're still casting that chain heal, there's two things you could do. One, you can move to stop the cast. If you see no damage whatsoever at the last half a second, move, cancel a cast. You don't waste any mana. It's fine. But the best thing to do, honestly, until you're good at that, at understanding when the damage is coming in, and this is something you got to fight with a new fight, is just let that chain heal go through. Because the worst that's going to happen is you're going to overheal, and we can work on overhealing as a side product, and that's much easier to work on. Riptide actually, with the talent setup that this healer has, needs to be prioritized because it is their big, somebody took damage, I want to get them healed. So, what I mean by that, so if I were to look at rankings, go down here, that's Iron Heals. Oh, this only shows theirs. Okay, I don't know if he has the same ability picked. He does not. He has Unleash Life. Okay. So, if we were to go back to this one, so we go to rankings, hold my totem. What you'll see is Riptide is there, or Torrent. Increase initial heal of Riptide by 30%. Okay, if you are going to use this, which I do not know the correct talents, I can tell you that this is not the same talent as the other guy. Can't tell if it's the right talent. That depends a lot on your comp. Just all there is to it. Shut up, bird. So you want to use your talents. It's one of my biggest pet peeves is somebody taking a talent and not utilizing it. Because you spent talent, we've only got so many talents, and you're spending a very important part of your talent, of your character, into a talent that did nothing for you. And it's that irks the shit out of me. So let's start with that. Now this is also on damage, so we'll go to healing. And once again, wasted a secondary talent because your Riptide has a second charge now because of this talent. And you can see where I'm going with this. Um, trying to think of. And then once again, another talent that was not utilized to its fullest because they didn't cast Chain Heal a lot. So once again, not to pick on this healer, it's perfectly fine. Everybody starts somewhere. Everybody starts somewhere. Some people start a little bit lower than others. Some people start a little bit higher than the others. But it doesn't matter where you start. You can always climb that pole. You just got to put in the time. So look at if you're running talents in a fight. If you're running talents in a fight, let's go to my character. If I'm running talents and I don't use Whirling Dragon Punch as often as I can, that's a wasted talent. I need to switch to something more passive then. If you have to run inoptimal talents to learn your class because you need more passives until you can get better at it, that's fine. Don't take that. You may gimp your healing a little bit, but in the long run, or your DPS a little bit, in the long run, learning your class and learning how to utilize these abilities is much more important than for you to sit there and say, I need to run the optimal, but it's just so many buttons that I can't keep up with it. Yes. We don't have any money. No. That is illegal. So no. Hey, buddy. Yeah. That's one finger. That's two fingers. Go play, buddy. Sorry. Next thing is something like diffuse magic. If I don't use my diffuse magic, it's a waste of a spell. Find something that you can use. Whether it be inner strength, 10% reduced damage, for every chi you use. Honestly, it's kind of weak. Or dampen harm, which is just flat 20 to 50% damage reduction. But I use diffuse magic in raid currently because a lot of the damage coming out is magic damage. Why do you think I'm able to soak Savara's thing every time? Diffuse magic and karma. So those are two big things I want. You need to do as any character. Make sure you're utilizing those talents. Next. Obviously, you look at the rankings for any, character. We've already gone over the rankings. So that's basically it. That is how you look at these. Now, the next thing you could do is you could take this, go to WoW Analyzer, plug it in, and you can see it's going to give you feedback. Now, here is the problem. All of this is a lot of info to take in, and some of it's bullshit. If I were to go to this, kill, and look at mine, look at this. I broke my mastery 7 times. No, I didn't. I'm going to tell you that right now. No, I didn't. There's no way in God's green earth I broke my mastery 7 times. Not at a 91 percentile for my level. Not at a 75th percentile overall. I did not do that. Used pre-potion? I may not have. Used a high-quality pre-potion? No. Used a second potion? I can almost guarantee I used 1 potion in this fight. So, Touch of Karma, not used correctly. How can you tell? That's a defensive cooldown. How do you know when I'm going to use Touch of Karma? Wasted cooldown on blackout strikes, 2.65. How do you get 0.65 of a fucking ability? Chi wasted per minute, 1.35. Bad spinning crane kicks per minute, 0. Like, you can use WoW Analyzer, but you have to understand it is a 10,000 foot view. If you're going to look at it, understand that. Is it bad? No. Can it make mistakes? Very easily. Does it understand everything that's going on in a fight? No. So will it tell you to use stuff inappropriately when you shouldn't? Yes. Such as diffuse magic. If I don't get one of those bombs from Savara, I'm not going to use my diffuse magic. It's just all there is to it. There's no reason for it. I'm not going to mitigate enough damage to warrant it. If I've only got 1 or 2 stacks of the debuff, I'm not going to waste my major cooldown from magic damage to mitigate 1 to 2 stacks. It's a waste. So, understand that. Okay? That is once again an important part of understanding parses. Those are how you look through the 3 parses, the basics. Now, there's obviously a million other things you can look at, such as mana. You can look anything in a fight can be looked at. Stacks of a debuff. I was looking through that for Blood earlier because he was wondering why he was taking so much damage on certain fight, and I found that he sat at 10 stacks for nearly 30 seconds on one fight. Okay, that's why you took so much goddamn damage. On fights where he was correctly managing his stacks, he took the exact same, almost identical amount of damage to the other tank. And I mean, literally, it was down to 10,000 damage. And that could be literally just one or 2 autos. I mean, it really could. So that is, good.